in my thinking about how to start off the year with what was important about people going into this market, I really think that one of the things that is missed is the financial health overall, not about just calling your mortgage broker and understanding, how much money I have to spend, but is that the right amount of money? Is it the right time for me? Do I have enough, RSPs, my actual financial health? And so who better to have on to talk about this year than Mark Halpern? And so I'd like to welcome Mark Halpern on to Leverage. Thank you so much for finding the time to be on this episode this year.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. It's such a thrill.
Absolutely.
Finally, I get to meet you, Rachel Levy.
I know. So let's get into that. So it's I get emails probably a couple times a month, actually maybe sometimes a couple times a week of, people who say, listen, I've got this great guest. I think you'd really like to have them on. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but I get this and I'm sitting in Florida, I'm with my husband and I see Mark Halpern's name. And I turn to Eddie and I say, you will never guess what email I just got. So Mark and I actually go back probably 30 years, but we don't know that because you go back that far with my husband through Mr. Goldstein as well. So how did Eddie play such a part in your life? I don't know.
First of all, I'm really happy to meet you, to see that you exist. Because you and your son and your daughter and Eddie, I've always heard about them and we've always talked about stuff we're passionate about. And he loves his family and the cottage. The cottage, oh, hello. That was the best thing you guys ever did. That's for
hopefully
sure.
Hopefully in that order. But yes, I will say that I don't know if I could find a more dedicated family man than my husband.
He's solid. He's solid. The only thing I don't like about him is he's in too good shape. I don't like looking at him when he's bigger than me and she's got those muscles, McGillicuddy arms and stuff, and I don't like that about him. But otherwise,
it's so funny you say that because they'll say something about Ed, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "You've seen your husband, right? Like, you know how large he is." I'm like, "We've been married for almost like 25 years."
Muscles, McGillicuddy. Anyway, he's a great guy. So let me tell you what happened. So I've been in professional practice for 35 years, which it feels like a day, But I like to tell people that my real start was when I was 11, and the backstory that my beautiful father died in 1974 when I was 11 years of age. He had a heart attack, and
which is the year I was born.
Really? Oh, now I know how old you are. Okay.
Wow. Oh yeah, 51 and proud, turning 52. No, okay, for sure. Good. Wow. Okay.
So I'm only, look at me. I'm like 120 months ahead of you. Okay, in 120 months you'll look as good as me. Anyway, but it was a real dramatic moment for our family because my dad was an amazing dad, but I was the youngest of four boys. My mom was 48, a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was a busy engineer. And unfortunately, there was no will, very little savings. There was no life insurance. Hello, the life insurance guy. And my mother, who was 48, had to go back to work to support our family. So, when we have our kids today, we want to give them what we didn't have and spoil them. But at the same time, we don't want them to feel entitled. In our case, we had no room for entitlement. We had to develop a struggle muscle from day one. And thank God, I'm so grateful for it because, if you got no place else to go, you just have to make it happen. And I was very blessed along the way to meet amazing people to help in that journey. And one of them was your husband. Because when I was working for Manulife or as one of their brokers, your husband was my wholesaler for living benefits. Now, of course, he's like a senior C-suite executive, right? And like he's a big shot.
By the way, I still don't know what he does. Like I always say to him, that I married you because I really love you because I had no idea what he did when I married him.
So it's funny. My wife of 30 years, Rhonda, I say, I jokingly say also, do you know what I do for a living? Now she does. No, she's getting it. She's really, it took some time, but your husband was my wholesaler. He was a super, super sweet, greeny guy. You know what I'm saying? Like really getting, and
I married that boy.
But meanwhile, you married good because you want, when you marry off your kids, if you're marrying off daughters in particular, my rabbi always told me, forget about, what they do and the money and all. He says, you want to know that you're marrying your daughter off to someone who's going to take really good care of her. That's it. Is this person going to be there to take care of your kid? And I know for sure he's been there for you and your kids. And that's
He's
the
a
way I
great
look at
role
it.
model for my daughter to know what she should have also. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. So he was helping me, and I was just a regular guy. I was working with families and professionals and affluent people, but sort of just doing everything for everybody, right? And not really having a plan. And then I found this product called critical illness insurance, which had been around for a long time, but only like less than 25% of all advisors had ever sold it. And, and people didn't know about it. And I said, you know what? This product would be so cool to sell on the radio. And I know you have an advertising background, Rachel. So
I remember you from radio. Yeah. I
yeah.
was not your rep, but I remember you were a pioneer. Like you were owning it back in you were like you and Babler Radio. Like there was
And
no one
Saul
else.
Corman and Jack
Yes,
Berkowitz, all the buddies.
Corman was my client. Yeah. Oh yeah. I sold to those guys. Yeah. Oh
So I
yeah.
went out to see, I remember seeing Jack Berkowitz. I met with him. We bumped into each other in a restaurant, and he told me he spent $1 million a year on radio advertising. I was like, $1 million? I don't have $10 in my pocket. Like, how you? Meanwhile,
Yeah.
I was spending close to $1 million a year myself, but I wasn't selling a key fob that, cost $50 with a 30% margin. We were looking for
So
successful
you were
people.
pioneers.
But your
Yeah.
husband sat with me from soup to nuts when I was building the brand and the website and the marketing and the advertising. And I have tremendous appreciation to your husband, Eddie, because he was one of the guys at the very beginning who got me to the dance. So now I get to say thank you to you as well.
So nice. We'll have to tag him in some way. I feel like he's gonna love to hear this.
He knows.
Aw, that's generous of you. So, I'll stop gushing about my husband because yeah, he's so fantastic. Tell everybody what you do now because you have, and I really do remember you. Like you went out and pioneered something that people didn't talk about as something that, and I always say I probably have way more insurance than I would ever have if I wasn't married to Eddie, right? We had critical illness back then. He saw the benefit of it. We've always had a financial advice, all of those things. But you took something that yeah, people just kind of got at work, right? Like they just, yeah, here's your life insurance, here's your whatever. And you came out and you said, this is something that needs to be a household product. And I'm going to pioneer it on the radio. By the way, I just have to say this. This is a shout out to anybody who wants to be in sales. If you can sell radio to a business owner, a small business owner, you can sell anything. It's not so easy to buy radio.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll just give you the proof was in the pudding. We ended up buying a little run of $36,000, about 6 weeks. And we had a celebrity endorser join me, Gord Stellick, and we had Aaron Davis. And they were all real clients, they bought from me. So we had relationships. But we went on the radio, and in the first 3 weeks, we heard from a property manager that my brother had qualified to spend $1,500 a month of premium. So that would be a case I'd go out to. Otherwise, I'd refer it to a bunch of other advisors. But the funny story is, Rachel, I went out to see this person in a part of town that you would not be venturing into. It was not my neighborhood, rundown buildings. And I'm going into this building and I'm nervous, and I see this older gentleman at the left. He's not the guy I'm meeting. I go to the other office, and I meet this individual who tells me that he's been buying and selling properties for this older gentleman for the last 30 years. And they family needs estate planning and tax planning. So he brings him in. Guys pocket protectors, dusty suit. And so I explained what I do. And I asked him, do you have a will? No will, no powers of attorney, wife's a U.S. citizen. I said, do me a favor, send me a list of all of your assets, what you paid for them and what they're worth today. And I'm going to bring my tax people in. We'll get started. Anyway, he wasn't even tacked up. I get full scap, the facts coming through. And I take it out and I pull out my...
And you ripped off the sides of it?
And I pull out my calculator and I start, guys, worth $150 million without any planning, okay? Anyway, I took that family to the law firm downtown to get wills, spousal trust. We got insurance. I made
Oy vey,
seven
smear.
figures on that one
No
case.
will?
Okay, but
No
how?
will with $150 million worth of
Yeah,
assets.
but I think the lesson there for you, especially in this conversation, is that you would think everybody would have everything all organized and together, especially people who are very successful and wealthy, and they've got. But I'm going to suggest, Rachel, 85% of the time, it's just
I
not
agree.
true. They're so busy looking after everything and everyone else, they don't have a will in place. They don't have powers of attorney. They don't have shareholders agreements. Nobody knows where all their stuff is. They haven't done a financial plan. They don't have insurance. They've got furniture that doesn't really represent their architecture. So anyway,
So
that's why it's
interesting way
really
of
great to
putting
be
it.
able to share this with you and with your people that, but here's the big question. How much critical illness insurance, Rachel, do you think that family bought? Remember, I was
Oh,
advertising.
for me, I was like, I thought you were going to ask me how much I have on
No,
my
no,
policy.
no. I knew you.
Um,
How much do you think they bought? Remember, I'm on the radio, advertising, critical illness. How much do you think they bought?
well, I know how expensive it is. I don't know, like $500,000 worth? Zero.
Zero.
Why? Why?
Because critical illness insurance was the thin edge of the wedge in order to get in front of people on a favorable basis to have a more holistic conversation around planning. If I had an ad that said, call me, we do estate planning, call me, we sell life insurance, call me, let's talk about your tax bill, call me, let's talk about what happens when you get sick and no. So it really is a real testament for a business owner like you as well. You have to be known for something. You have to have some sort of, very, very strong vertical that people know you're that person. That person. It doesn't mean that excludes you from all the other stuff that has to happen, but at least
No.
it gets you known and referable and can get in front of people, but you have to be known for something. So fast forward now, I work with some of Canada's most successful business owners and entrepreneurs and affluent families, and I do three things: estate planning, tax mitigation strategies using tax-exempt insurance, and philanthropy. A big part of our business now is using philanthropy as the thin edge of the wedge to help people create enduring legacies, often just by converting tax into charity, and most people don't know about it.
No, and I have actually also been exposed to that through some charities that I have volunteered my time through, and there are several people now who are getting into that space because it's an excellent vehicle if you have that type of wealth to be able to leave a legacy behind for sure. I do want to kind of go back to your dad because I think it's a great way for us to kind of set the stage. I think it lends credibility, but also a human side of and something that you and I connected, considering we go back so far but don't know each other. We within like the first 20 minutes of talking, we connected on a very similar type of story that got us both into our businesses. So please tell us a little bit what happened with your dad and how it drove, like kind of directed you to do what you do now.
Yeah, I'd say that, first of all, the experience with loss, when you're a little kid and you're 11 years old, you don't have any experience other than what you saw on television, like Kojak or, police
And
movies.
it's nothing like
Somebody's
that.
burying their kid, or they're burying their father. So I think that was very eye-opening. And as an orphan, I guess just I had my brothers and I had my mother, I realized that my father was a fantastic father, but he was doing the best that he could in the situation, but he didn't have somebody to turn to. Either he did and he rejected that person, or nobody actually showed up in his life. And the sad part is that I saw how hard it was for my mother to go back to work and to sort of support our family, that it was sort of a rallying cry for me that there are a lot of other people out there who don't know what's on the other side of, dying too soon or getting sick or living too long or, retiring or whatever, because nobody likes the idea of doing any planning. It's just not sexy. And it's not something
No,
that
they don't want to talk about dying, right? I
right.
mean,
They don't want to talk about that, but the reality is that it doesn't have to be a very sort of onerous experience to go through it. It's actually very freeing when you have planning in place. It actually is great because that stuff rents space in our brain and our subconscious, and we know we have to get to it, and it zaps us of energy. And when you do get it done, especially if you can find somebody, and there are great advisors out there, find somebody, ask one of your friends, who do you recommend? Who really are they good? Are they like
But
holistic?
interview. It would be similar to like a real estate agent. Please don't just take the first person because you also need to feel comfortable with them, right? Like my style with someone may not be what they're looking for. They may need someone very different from me. And there's a lot, there are good realtors out there. I'm not for everyone. Interview, understand what you're getting from it. Same with financial advisors. Everyone's got a different style of dealing with clients, looking at their portfolio. But it surprises me, and not to cut you off, but how many people I speak to who, when I have those conversations, because I don't say, hey, call me, I'll give you a home evaluation, right? What's going on in your life? Why do you want to move? What's spurring this? That type of thing. Have you spoken to a financial advisor? Oh, we don't have a financial advisor. Oh, is there a reason why we don't have any money? They don't like, do you have RSPs? Yeah, well, we have some. Okay, so you have money. Like everyone thinks that you can only call a financial advisor if
If
you have
you're
millions.
Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, but no, civilians, regular people, they need to do this. Rachel, just to give you an example, like wills. I just want us to talk about wills because I hope that this resonates with people who are going to be listening. 50% of the population doesn't have a will, right? And of those people
And
who
why
do
is
have
that
wills,
important? Sorry, Mark, let's back it up for the average person. Like, why is it important? Because you're like, I don't really have that much. I have a house. Like, so what big deal? What happens if I die without a will?
perfect. So most people think about getting a will when they have kids because it's always about who's going to be the guardian in case, God forbid, there's a common
That's what
disaster.
they do.
And then they don't do anything about it because they can't decide. Is it your brother? Is it your sister? Is it your uncle? I can't. And therefore they never get a will, right? So, but if you die in
Were you at our meeting when we did our will? I think you might have been.
anyway, this is the norm. This is not the exception. They can't decide. But if they do, the challenge is that if they don't do anything and they die without a will, even if you just have a house, you have a house, right? Which, if you're in the GTA, is worth big bucks. And let's just say you have a house that's worth $2 million and you've got two kids who are under the age of 18. So if you die without a will, it's called dying intestate. Okay, that means without a will. And the government has a formula for how your estate is distributed. Your wife or your husband would get the first $300,000, and then the balance would be divided up between your spouse and your two children, and they would all be split up a third, a third, a third, and your kids' money would be invested by a public trustee in GICs until they turn 18, in which case then they get all the money.
What?
That's the default. That's the formula, Rachel, for people who don't have a will. If that's not enough of a reason to jump and run and even get an online will, if you've got a
I was
very
just going to say,
basic,
how much does it cost to get one?
how much does peace of mind cost?
No, but I just like, again, average, if you were to go
Average,
online
perfect.
or just
You can go
call
online.
it,
You can get, we'll say, basic will, 2 powers of attorney, no complication, cost you, I don't know, somewhere between $300 and $500. That's it. Done. Check mark.
and it's the same thing. You always say, like, I would say to a client, like, if you're going to go into like a huge renovation, why would you not have, for example, a designer? Like when you think about the percentage of what that all is worth, I think it's actually surprising. Like you said, I think if you were to do an average poll, a poll on 100 average people, 1,000 average people, I don't know, and say, how often do you think about money? Of the things that you worry about, where does money lie? Number one, number two, number three. I would probably guess that most people would say that money is within the top 10, if not the
For
number
sure.
one.
One, two,
Right?
three.
So,
Kids,
so there
family.
you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So now you say to yourself, okay, so I worry about money. I have children where, I mean, I have like clients will say like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to retire, or my entire retirement is in my house, or whatever it is. But you're just guessing that. If you don't have a financial advisor and you don't have a plan and you don't write it down, for example, Mark, on January 1st, do you wake up and go, I wonder what I'm going to do this year with my business? I don't. So if you're going to run a successful business, you're going to run a successful life, and you want to know where you're going to end up in your life, you need to be able to have a plan. And that doesn't mean that it's set in stone, because God forbid you have things that set you back, like an illness, or you have a child that decides, you know what, they are rocket science, and now you got to find money for some like program at Harvard and US dollars for a major whatever they are. It's movable. It's a moving target. And that's what a financial advisor would do every year, is they sit down and they give you, or at least the good ones would sit down with you every year and give you a review of where you're at.
Yeah, well, look at when you get into the car and you're going out to a meeting someplace, Rachel, the first thing you probably do is take your phone and you go to Waze, right? And you plug in your GPS the address, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere, or you're going to be stuck in traffic, or you're going to take the long route when you could have taken the short route. So just as you get into a car and you put on your Waze, why would you not have a Waze, a financial Waze in place that helps you know where you're going and what you want to achieve? And by the way, all of that stuff, when you do get it done, that financial plan, it's liberating. It's like you might find out, hey, I can retire sooner than I thought, or I don't need to make 10% on my stuff. I only need to make 4% on my stuff. I don't need to take as much risk, or I have to work longer, or there's going to be this inheritance from my mom and dad, or I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to downside. It all helps to give you that freedom to make decisions. But the key is you have to do it while the sun is shining, and don't wait till you're 60 when there are far fewer options for you in terms of making some changes.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And listen, if you find out that you have to work a little longer, better to know now than have made, and I think that that's what it comes down to. But I almost want to go away from the end, like, result, and kind of start at the beginning, because I'd love to tailor this conversation as well and speak to a lot of the young families that I'm putting into houses. Okay. So, some of the stuff that scares me, and we're in a funny market right now. I think that we're probably going to see status quo this year. Prices will stay where they're at. But they'll eventually start to go up. Not crazy. I think like now it's going to go back to like normal times when just stuff goes up by inflation, the way it should have been, right? Like, but to buy a home in Toronto, even in the GTA, okay? I had clients who were referred to me recently. They have a little girl and they have up to 1.5 million to buy a house, and they're actually pretty flexible, like where they want to live. They'd like something a little like cool and different and like, a little mid-century modern, but like super easygoing, lovely. I'm going to tell you right now, not so easy. And there are people who would sell their soul to have $1.5 million to go buy a house. There are a lot that don't. So buying a house in a good neighborhood that's got daycares and parks, forget like 416, you're not going to see a house under $2 million anywhere. That doesn't need to be gutted, that it like isn't backing onto that's on a major street, all that stuff. That's not going to change. So now you've got these, and let's just take the bank of mom and dad lucky people out of that, right? So the people that are saving and doing it, and even some of them that are getting help, they aren't setting aside the money for the RSPs. There's no savings. And so what would you say to young couples? Like, where is that basis? So let's say you've got a couple, they haven't come to you first, because really the ultimate path should be, we need to talk to Mark first. We're thinking about buying a house. What does that look like for our financial future? What should we be spending? Is it okay to be a little overdrawn for a couple years and then we'll make it up later with this plan or that plan, right? It's not always about no, it's just about how to do it. But let's say a couple comes to you and they've already bought a house. Mark, we're like, it's like, we got a little money, it's tight, but like, if I've got a little money left over, what should I have? Where should I be putting it? What is that basis, right? Like, what's that number one thing that you recommend people having?
Perfect. It's a great question. So, first of all, none of my kids are going to be living in Toronto. I've got 5 children, right? 3 are married, 2 are getting married. We have 2 weddings coming up at the end of this month, 12 days apart. Our oldest
Where are
son,
they?
one is going to be a son getting married here in Toronto at the end of February, and then my daughter's married 12 days later in New Jersey. So it's going to be a blast. We're going to have
Oh,
a
wow.
lot of fun.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
that's a different level of savings because that's like, but they're not going to live here because it's just not affordable. And you don't want that yoke of that. Plus, if you have your kids in private school, or it's just you need a lot of money. You need to be making at least $300,000 a year between a husband and wife just to get by and maybe have a vacation or something.
No, and this is coming from a financial advisor and a real estate agent. I have also encouraged my children. Like, I have a son in Israel and a daughter who will likely end up in the States.
Right. But you, Rachel, were very lucky because I know that you bought your first house when you were 22, and that is like not normal. But
No, but
and
it's
I want to say what you did though. I think that's a good message for young people. Okay, the message here for young people is that if you could buy Apple stock at $15 a share, you would grab as much as you could. Right now that it's several $100s, you would, because you know that it's valuable and you're getting in at a good price that's reasonable. The same thing goes here with young people. It's the best time is now. The best time is this moment because it is going to get more expensive. And I don't think they're building more here. And we have more immigration, that people need a place to live. It's just not, but so what does it come down to? What should you do? What's the first thing? There are 2 types of people, Rachel. There are those who spend first and they save what's left over. Okay? Basically, those people generally have more month than money. Okay? They're stretched beyond. And then there are those people who save first and then they spend what's left over. That first group represents 96% of the population.
I was young.
Oh, maybe when you were young, right?
No, I was not now, but
No.
no.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's 96%. The other group represents 4% of the population. That largely, that group of 96 end up working for that group of 4% over here all of their lives. And the people who are the 4% pay yourself first, they end up having money to buy houses, to get, retire on time, have money for kids' education, go on vacation. So how do you do it? You don't have to be a CPA. You don't have to be a certified financial planner. You have to know there's kind of like 4 things you have to be aware of. Number 1 is your bank account. You need to have at least a minimum of 3 to 6 months of money available, either in cash or credit, in case you have to go on a little bit of a holiday where you can't be working. Emergency fund. Most people are living on the edge in terms of the money they have coming in. And when interest rates went up on mortgages, suddenly they're like, oh my gosh, how do we, and their mortgages renewed? So that's one big
So
problem.
I want to play devil's advocate because I was that. Listen, I mean, Eddie and I were young. We're very proud. Everything we've done in our lives, we've made every single dollar. Nothing was given to us. And so I remember early days though, where you're young and you're just building your career. I don't know, is it young to have a child at 29? I feel like I was so young, 29
You're
years old. I had
29?
my first
How old
child.
were you?
Yes, I'm 29 now. No, I mean, I was 29 when I had my first child.
That's my wife also. That's
And,
when we had our first kid
so
too.
now, and then I had my second child at 31. So now I'm like 31 years old and I've got a house. I've got 2 kids, going into Hebrew day school, camp, like there was not 6 months worth of extra money sitting in. Now, that's also like, listen, I appreciate that some of that is also very privileged to be able to say that I had children in private school and in camp and all of that great stuff. But, we made choices and we didn't have that money. And it took us, many years to get at 2 different levels in our careers to be able to say, okay, now we've got money to set aside.
Fine. So I hear what you're saying, Rachel. What when I talk about putting money aside 3 to 6 months, it's just having emergency money in case you have to take a time out. I'm saying it could be a line of credit.
I was just going to say, could it be a HELOC?
Absolutely. But just
Okay.
the point is don't live on that edge. You must have some fat between you and disaster. Okay. That's
Okay,
number
we
one.
had that.
Good.
Okay, we
Number
had that.
2,
Okay, good.
debt is a terrible black hole for a lot of people because the banks are offering, oh, here's your credit card, $5,000. And of course you go, honey, yeah, Vegas, oh, Florida, whatever. And people are spending way beyond their means. And that's not good because those credit card bills could be 22%. That's 22% that you're paying versus, investing someplace. That's a non-deductible expense. So be very aware of the fact that you should be only spending what you have. If you want to establish yourself and you're living beyond your means, I mean, again, maybe you have, Bank of Mom and Bank of Dad to call on, but just be very, that's a second area. The third area is really where you're going to spend 90% of your time. That's things like, buying stocks, bonds, real estate, TFSAs, RRSPs, RESPs. It's all your investments, okay? And that's going to be where you're going to spend a lot of time. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then the last box is really risk management. What happens if you don't get to that place? That's where you have your will, your life insurance, your critical illness, all those things. So what it comes down to is you have to say, okay, Rachel, if I asked you to put aside $10,000 a month towards paying yourself, take care, you'd say, Mark, dream on. Maybe now you could, but I mean, back then you'd say, "Are you crazy?" But if I asked you to put aside $1,000 a month to pay yourself first, like nobody else is going to pay you, but to pay $1,000 a month and pay yourself first, you could probably come up with that money. So you have to come up with what's the number between $1,000 and $10,000 a month that we're going to now allocate towards emergency money, towards savings, towards the free money from the government. We got to talk about free money from the government, towards insurance. But the idea there is it's a plan. It's not sort of like snake eyes,
And I think that it needs to start early. And one of the things, I don't know if you guys do this, but one of the things that we did with our kids was we put them in front of a financial planner and showed them what it would look like if they were to put away a certain amount of money. And we're talking $20, okay? Like if they put this amount of money, how much would they have when they were 30? And it was very interesting to see the reaction. My son left and went, I don't have $20. And my daughter went, I need to get a job. So
the personalities come out. Which one's you and which one's Eddie?
Oh no, my son is me. My son is me and my daughter is Eddie for sure. And so but I would also say like both of them, and I think this happens also when you get a job and you're like, oh my God, look at all this money I have. Right? I'm gonna spend all this money, right? Because I didn't have this before. And when both my children got jobs, I went, okay, great. So how much are you making? Oh, wow. Yeah. My son was like, yeah, it's so great. And I'm like, you're gonna do nothing of the sort. I said, you're going to set yourself a budget. How much money do you need to go out? I didn't see you paying rent or buying food or groceries or gas money. I was like, how much money do you need to, hang out every month? And he gave me a number. I said, so you can have half of that. And the rest of it, you're going to send and invest. And my daughter, we made her do her own. And listen, she lives in an apartment. She's got a big job, like a job, and she has to send money every month in.
Look at that.
And they're lucky only because, we have the ability and the luxury to be able to teach them that. But if kids, even small, like I think I wish there was they should have someone who specializes in kids.
So they do. There's a guy who has a whole program. It's all about, if the schools are not teaching it, and it's crazy that they don't. They should be a course on buying a house. What's a mortgage? What's amortization? What's interest? What's deductions? All that. And then the parents aren't saying it. So we're creating an entire generation of financially illiterate people who are hoping that there's going to be this big wealth transfer from our parents, the greatest saving generation of all time, to us, the greatest spending generation of all time. But meanwhile, those older generations are going to need it for taxes and healthcare. So we do have to take responsibility. I agree. And it could be very well. And we were talking about this on another podcast where, gather all these kids together and have a little hug, like a little hobby group where, and when kids, start investing in stocks, and they see how if you put away $10 a month now for an RRSP versus putting away $1,000 a month when you're 50, it's like there's no comparison. That $10 a month is going to be worth way more than somebody starting putting $1,000 a month when they're 50 years of age. And you go, oh, wow. So you get them excited, but it's all education and storytelling. Don't get into the weeds. Some kids really need the weeds, like they're those analytical types that, they want to know how everything works.
Yeah, they're different personalities for sure.
But you have to, so I encourage it. I think it's great. One of the things that one of my clients does, and they did this religiously, they're very successful. It's a lot of dental practices. And he said, here, anytime you made money, you took 60% of it, went off the table and went into savings right away. Okay? That's savings. 10% of whatever they made went into charity. And then the other 30%, spend to your heart's delight. Have a great time. And what happened was they started that with little jars.
Was it a dentist, sorry, you said that did this?
Well, yeah, dentist, yeah, a guy who's, whatever. But their family was very big on educating and developing that muscle around this from day one. So they got $10 from grandpa. They went in, they put $6 into savings. They took $3 for partying their brains out, and $1 went into charity. And you do that over and over again. It becomes part of who you are. It's your
mentality.
So, but we have to do more of that. So getting back to that thing, that financial plan, there's no cookie cutter. Each situation is unique. You have to look at what's your burn rate? How much money do you need every month to get by? Car expenses, phone subscriptions, memberships, and make sure that it gets put into I call it into like the sausage machine. It's like the laboratory. All of this goes in, and then what comes out is you either get a big fat check mark that you're doing good, right? And or not. And if you're doing good or you're not, here are all these other options that you could be layering on top of what you're doing right now. And let's measure the ROI on those versus your defaults. But it's all about doing the work, which is not so glamorous, but it's so rewarding. It's so
and it's eye-opening. I'll tell you a little funny story about your friend Eddie. So many, many, many moons ago, we were tasked to sit down and look at our spending. Now we were looking at like, okay, here was our retirement time, and they were like, okay, we need you to go through everything. We're going to analyze everything you're spending in your credit card and your, we only have one credit card, because I am like my son. I can only have one credit card. I should never have more than one credit card. So I have one credit card, one bank account. That's it. Okay, fine. The assistant analyzes it and comes back, and she's like, I think there was a mistake. And they're like, I don't understand. And we're like, oh, what's the problem? They're like, it says you spend, I don't even remember. It was something like $600 a month in dry cleaning. And I look over at my husband and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, well, I like how they do my shirts. I go, we have a nanny. So, well, I really like how they fold them. And I'm like, okay. So again, going back to, it's not always about not getting whatever you need to get done, but just doing it differently, because you just don't even realize that you're racking up a certain bill and it can be done a different way. And then all of a sudden, so it's an interesting exercise, flexing that muscle that you're talking about and saying, oh, that's not a good use of my money.
Yeah, I'm just going through this right now with an amazing trainer. I have a trainer, a nutritionist, but this is a guy he's written books, and we're very close. And he's got me looking. He spent a Shabbos with us, and at the end of it, he pulled out his Excel, and he said, "Here, I want you to fill in all the boxes. How many calories did you have on Shabbos this week?" And it happened to be it was a good shot. I think there was a bar mitzvah. Anyway, I took a look, Rachel. It was like close to 4,000 calories, like in 24
I was going to say, I could do 4,000 in a good kiddush, okay? Like, let's just put it out there, all right?
This was 4,000. I was like, oh my gosh. So he said, don't give it all up. But what can we reduce or just minimize and get to, and so far, hey, listen, I've lost 11 pounds since I started with him, which is great. And I want to be looking good for those suits and stuff like that. But that's the same thing with financial planning. In order to get gold in the Olympics, you need a coach. If you want to be holding the Super Bowl, trophy, you need a coach. If you want to be good in business, you're real estate, you need a coach and a mentor. So people can't, there are people who have financial acumen and they could do it themselves, and God bless them. But a lot of people, are going based on the sandwich they had for lunch and the Coke in their stomach, and they're not really, sometimes it's good to have somebody from the outside. Now, there are different people you can get. Get somebody who's either, there are people who make commission on sales, so they're more transactional. They'll do business with you, but they've obviously got desires for you to buy stuff from them. And then there are people who charge by the hour, let's say, or by the contract to help you with this kind of planning, right? So there's somebody for everybody, but the most important thing is not to ignore it. There's just far too much riding on the line here. And one last story on this. I'm sitting in my boardroom right now, and I had two older people here in my office. I'll never forget. We did a financial plan for them. Rachel, they were worth $80 million. 80. Self-made, living Walmart, still like, I'm just saying
But that's, yes.
I love those people. Anyway, we did the plan, and she was in this chair, and she turned to her husband, and she said the following. She says, "We could go on that cruise that I've always wanted to go on." I kid you not. My jaw dropped. What? Because this financial planning provides freedom to people. It actually helps them with their health. It helps them with their health. They have less anxiety. Makes them feel happier around their kids. It gives them longevity of life. There's a whole bunch of underlying stuff that people have to be aware of.
Sometimes it just got to get worse before it gets better. Just put it all on the table, stare at it. It's going to be painful for a short period of time, but the gain that you get long term, and you're like, I don't think there's a single person that would go through that experience and on the other side of it go, oh my God, it's worse. Or, oh my God, I wish that I hadn't done that, because knowledge is power, and sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich isn't going to help. And I think that getting off, and I think that it's okay. It's very similar. And I say this about myself, and I'm sure it's very similar in your position also. I always say, I am here as a person who's going to share my expertise. I'm going to give you my advice, and I'm going to manage your expectations. And then it's going to be my client's decision what they want to do. So, it's like going to a lawyer. Here, I have a problem. I'm going to go get some legal advice. The lawyer's going to say to me, these are your options. This is what I recommend you doing. You go, you know what? I really appreciate the advice. I'm going to take a little bit of it, but I actually really just want to do this. Okay, I'm going to help you. And it's the same thing with a financial advisor, in the sense you can come in and just say, okay, well, I need you to help me know how I can buy this. I want to buy a house. I want to have a house I'm a father. I just had a baby. I'm proud. I want to own a home. I want to get my
backyard swings. I want all that.
Swing. I know it's going to be really tight. I know it's not the greatest financial decision right now, but it's really what I want to do. I want you to help me make it make sense in the long term. That's still an option. You're not going to go, no, get out of my office. You're not my client, right? I hear you. I want to help you. You want the best for people. And I think people are afraid to have those conversations. And I just wish that more young, I know there's lots of older people also who are still not having it, which shocks me, but just the young generation. And before we go though, I do want to do one more very specific real estate topic. And that we talked about in regards to mortgage insurance. So I have my own experience with it. Again, you mentioned that I bought a house when I was 22, and it was because I lost my mother when I was very young, and she did not have there was no insurance. She had a very small life insurance through her work, and it was divided up between my sister and her husband. And I decided to move, and that's how I bought it. Was this little, I think I got $13,000. I think not that.
It's a lot of money back then.
$13,000. Yeah, well, because I also bought a house for $162,000. So everyone can come after me on that one. Anyway, great little bungalow on Whitmore at Marley and Eglinton. It was a dream, and I was so poor.
You were very eligible, Rachel. If I would have met a girl who has a house at 22, I'd be like, where do I sign up? Take me out of my poor house. I want to be with you.
Eddie was in a rental. I'd always say, I'm like, you married me for my money. So So then my mother passes away, and they had mortgage insurance.
Yeah.
And all that it did was paid off the minimal, small, little like mortgage that they had that
Which
they
is
could
better, which is better than nothing,
which is better than
obviously.
yes. Sorry. So again, I guess I just want to go on it because I'm on the same page as you that, and I really drill this into different podcast topics. And when I talk to clients, banks are a business. They're going to sell you the credit card. They're going to sell you a HELOC that you cannot afford. They're going to sell because their numbers are very different than your bottom line day-to-day spending. And actually, sometimes they don't always give you everything you want, but the bottom line is you'll probably get more than you can afford. Great. So knowing that, mortgage insurance is another product they're going to sell you. And I remember when we bought our house and I said to Eddie, should we have mortgage insurance? And he said, no. He said, we're better to have an insurance policy that God forbid something happens to you, including critical illness, that we can choose what we want to do with that money.
Right.
And so are you of the same thought process? And
1,000%.
Okay.
1,000%. Look at. Realize that this is why the banks sell so much credit or mortgage insurance or insurance on your line of credit. Okay, it's like it's found money. You're sitting there, you're about to buy your first house or a house, and it's your happiest moment, right? And they look at you and your wife and they say, would you like to buy insurance in case, God forbid, you die? That the house is paid for. And what, you're not going to turn to your wife and say, nah, I don't need it. She'll whatever, right? Or they say, would you like your mortgage paid off if you get sick? Good, sign here, and off you go. And that's the biggest industry out there, the biggest racket. Now, why is it a big racket? Because what happens is when you buy insurance, it's underwritten, meaning you fill out an application and you go through medical questions, and you might actually need a medical as well to qualify for it. The bank insurance gets underwritten at the time of claim, not at the time of application, which means at that time, let's say you didn't put a certain thing in there, or they were missing, or you had gone to this clinic and you didn't report on it. There's an entire industry of legal professionals who fight the banks because the banks have so much of that business. They say, so sad, too bad, you're not getting it. And like, what are you going to do? You're going to fight, City Hall? So that's one thing, number one. Number two, the biggie. Besides the fact that you pay HST and GST, just so you know, on bank insurance. But here's the biggie. If you ever sell that house and now you want to get mortgage insurance someplace again, your old mortgage insurance does not does not come with you. Doesn't transfer, it's gone, which means that you're now older, potentially have medical issues, whatever the case might be, and now you might not qualify for insurance going forward, okay? So do you want to put yourself into a situation we're planning on selling the house in 5-10 years, and all of a sudden your family is bereft, they have no insurance, okay? Another thing that's really important, the other thing is the mortgage insurance at the bank. You're only paying for the mortgage, which hopefully is reducing every year. And you're paying the same premium all the way along for a reducing coverage. Whereas if you had your own insurance, that's not the case. And again, it's not just paying the mortgage off when you die. You can do whatever you want with money. Maybe you don't want to pay off the mortgage. You got a great mortgage rate. Why not consider to pay it? But at least you've got that cash in your hands. So and the last thing I think that's also very important is that term insurance is something, it's kind of like a rental, but it can always be converted into a permanent insurance policy as an investment without any medical evidence. And you can actually now convert some or all of your term insurance into that if you own your own policy. But if you have it through the bank,
just to clarify,
term life insurance. Yeah. And then if you have it though through the bank, there's no conversion. It's just straight. You're renting this product. There's none of this ability to convert it. So it's not very flexible. So, you might look at the numbers. You might look at the numbers and go, oh, but it's so much cheaper. Well, read between the lines, okay? Well, it's really cheaper because, thank you. That's it. That's so true.
No, and also you can buy insurance that you pay into and you get to a certain age and you're still alive and you're fine. They cash it out and you get your money back.
Correct.
or portions of, or whatever it works, right? So if you paid into it at a certain, however many years, you're like, oh, I actually don't need this anymore because I've got something else and it was an additional, they can go, no problem. We'll just cash this out for you.
Right. But I'd say that you're spot on. The key here is to remember when you have a young family and you're growing your nest egg, your biggest asset is not your house, although we all say it is, right? Your biggest asset is your ability to earn money. You are a money making machine. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that that money making machine is insured against anything, against sickness, disability, God forbid death. Because if you love somebody and you've got a wife and you've got kids, or you've got a spouse, a husband, you want to make sure that during a time when it's the most emotionally impactful time, that they're not only just not grieving you, but they're not worrying about money. And it gets so easy. It's pennies on the dollar to give you the peace of mind knowing that everything's all organized and put together. But again, requires maturity.
No, it's
you have
fair.
to be somebody that you see, I love my family. I want to take responsibility. I'm willing to go through the process of learning about it and finding out about it. And I'm gonna take responsibility for my family. If you don't love somebody, you don't need insurance. That's the bottom line.
There you go. That's what we're going to end with.
We'll end
If you
up.
don't
That's
really
it.
love them, don't worry about it.
You don't love
call
somebody,
Mark.
don't bother. If you love
If you
somebody,
don't-
you get insurance. If you don't love anybody, just continue with your life.
Mark, it was a pleasure. I have like 100 other things I want to chat with you about, so we'll have to do it another time and have you back. But thank you so much. This was incredible.
It was a lot
and
of fun.
I really have to say, so it's amazing to talk to someone who is as passionate about what you do as I am. So I really enjoy the banter and how passionate you are and how important you see it as being part of people's lives. And I do hope, we will have your contact information and all that stuff in the show notes. But I really encourage people, like, if this episode made you think twice about just picking up a phone and having that conversation, do it. Just don't double think it. Like, just go and do it. I'm thankful that I have a husband who is in this business. I don't know if I would have ever had that know-it-all to have one and to do all of it, but I'd give him the credit. Like, we are where we are today in a lot of ways because we've stuck to a plan, because we said we need one.
Rachel, my wife Rhonda says the same thing. And I remember when we were first married, I think we were married for a couple of months and we got wills in place. Wills? We've done our wills, several times along the way because our kids became older, or we had corporations, but yeah, you need someone to take the lead. So if it's not you, give the other spouse the ability to step forward, but get it done for sure.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.